Jay Beam coming to you from R.B.W.EA out of Tulsa today. Today I have a surprise, and so today we're interviewing a friend and a fellow collaborator of mine who's already had a tremendous impact on me. And so I'd really like to have the opportunity to introduce Dick Williamson to the world and to the group, and ask you some questions today, if that's okay. So we seem to be kind of stuck along this line of really what brought you here and what's kept you. And so if it's okay with you, I'd like to direct those two questions to you, sir.
Well, I can always flip the question around and say, what keeps me here? And getting a chance to spend some time with you and many of the other people that are the energy advisors of our new venture is a big part of this. But everything begins much earlier than that. And for me, it was my grandfather. I was fortunate that I got to know him and know him well for much of his later years. An electrical engineer who had spent a bunch of his early academic life learning about how to direct the water from rivers into power generation.
Yes, sir.
And did that both as an undergraduate and a graduate. And then when he was in between programs, got the word that there was a small community not too far from where he was at the time that, like so many communities in the early turn of the century, meaning the 20th century, didn't have their own power. And life was still kerosene and wood stoves and things of that nature. And so being in the vicinity of a burgeoning oil industry in the mid-continent, he went to the town and using what they had, which was crude oil, but it was crude oil being taken to another place, a refinery. That wasn't something they could use, or they didn't think they could use. But he found a way to turn the crude oil into steam and steam into power generation, and then his double E experience took him into doing what he really enjoyed doing, which was finding ways to help people live a better life.
Yes, sir.
And he went back and got his doctorate, and then with so much time with General Electric, both in research and also in the Panama Canal, began to understand the challenges that come when you are dedicated to achieving something much larger than yourself, what it requires of you to be more than just engaged and involved. You have to dedicate your time and energies and be prepared to overcome a lot of frustrations in that, which he did. And then when he was asked to come to the oil patch where he had studied, he because they wanted him to sell the electrical switchgear equipment that General Electric was well known for, he took that on and moved my grandmother and my father and then the sisters that followed in time to Oklahoma, and began to understand what the early days of the oil industry was really about, and that they needed a lot of electrical equipment. But just like that small town in east central Oklahoma, they didn't have much power in the oil fields either. And he, after several years of working with a number of smaller oil fields, he went back to GE and he said, they really like our equipment, but they don't have power. They're too far from towns and they just aren't prepared to move forward. But he said, I have the training to help them generate power. I've done it before on a smaller scale, but the challenges of doing it in the oil fields will be different. But I'm ready to take that on, and I would like your support both as a supplier, but also to help me form the kind of business that would be the contractor for this. And out of that, in the 1920s, he built the first of several businesses that he formed that were really gauged to facilitate the mission of the oil and gas industry, which is to serve communities, to provide sustainable energy so that the quality of life, not just in Oklahoma and in mid-continent, but eventually around the world, would be transformed. When you spend time around a person like that, you have to pick up some of the passion that they have for what they do.
Yes, sir.
And why they have spent so much of their time and dedicated so much of the talents, both the intellectual talents, but the biblical term of talents, meaning a form of exchange, to make sure that he could invest in growing that capability. And so for the next decades, much of his time was really listening to customers and trying to understand what the oil field industry was really about in those early days, what their critical needs were, and to work with others, to collaborate with them, and to develop different approaches, things that had not been conceived of before, but certainly were appreciated as a possibility. And out of that came the automation of the first crude oil pumping station, at least in the mid-continent, where it was appreciated by the locals, but also through ASME. In the years that followed, he continued to approach that sort of inquisitive and supportive approach to working with the industry, and kept finding other things that they needed, and would come up with different solutions for them. It wasn't until the 1940s when the war emergency pipelines were built, and they learned that pipelines were not only good for moving crude oil and refined products, they were, as you might say, a large and very long heat exchanger, because crude oil coming out of the ground is hot and everything stays in solution. But as it cools, certain things like waxes begin to precipitate on the walls of the pipe, and the inner diameter of the pipe gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And he was approached by the head of the war emergency pipeline system, and the gentleman said, "I know this isn't your business, but we have a problem, and we've worked with you to solve other problems before. We'd really like you to consider ways in which you might, with your people, come up with a solution." And he and his associates, which included my father at that time, developed a tool that was able to help clean the pipelines for larger and larger diameters without collapsing or causing damage to the pipeline. And we call that device today the pig. He didn't call it a pig, he called it a scraper, because that's the term that was used. But because of the way it scraped the internal walls of the pipe and the noise it made, and because he'd gotten his engineering degrees in Arkansas, it had to be a pig. It just sounded like a pig. And so it became a pig by legacy and as a general practice around the world.
And collegiate
So
affiliation.
out of that became something that transformed his view of the industry to focus really more on the needs of pipelining, because pipelining was what joined the very critical and complicated work of the oil fields with the very complicated and very important work of the refineries to create the industry and the quality of life that we are able to appreciate today. But the pipelines were critical, and they were at an early stage. And so he has committed himself and his people to continue with that. And from there, I would say I sort of picked up my own personal journey, because when I was in college, I had a summer job. And it began at a good place for a college student working in engineering, and that is down in the ditch, not in an engineering office, working on computers, which came along much later, but in the ditch where the actual work was being done. It's the same place my grandfather learned about the oil field exploration and production industry. It's where the difficult issues arise and where the really insightful solutions need to be developed. And I learned to appreciate that not by anything that I was doing, but by the work of others, those that were welding in the ditch, to those that managed the movement of the product, to those that made decisions as to the way to measure and to calculate and determine where product was to go and in what conditions, and how this became a 24/7 lifetime for them, just as it was for the industry. And then I realized that the industry we were serving doesn't sleep. It doesn't sleep around the world, of course, but it doesn't sleep in any location because it's absolutely essential that these services be provided on an ongoing and reliable basis anywhere in the world that they're carrying on. I had other experiences later on after I graduated from engineering school and spent some time learning about petrochemical research and appreciated the downstream capabilities that came from a proper handling of the product that came out of the ground, separating it, treating it, making different products out of it, from nylons to a variety of other products. But it all depended upon the pipelines to do their job successfully. And so I returned to that industry and have been a part of it ever since then. Probably the most later in my career significant experience was the year I spent in the field as a technician, carrying out maintenance operations on pipelines and in refineries. There again, I was seeing the same dedication to creating a sustainable service, safe, reliable, not only safe and reliable for the people working in that location, but for the society and the environment in which they had been domiciled to carry out their very important work. All of those have helped me, as I worked with others over the years, to realize how important it is that we realize that we are, whatever our roles happen to be, stewards. Stewards of technology, certainly, stewards of sustainable processes, but mostly stewards of a very essential process which industry and society requires. Travels around the world have only reaffirmed that. And so it's helped me understand this industry. It's helped me understand something about myself, and it's helped me understand what is required to create a sustainable business that has a sense of purpose and mission, and its character as a company and of its people is really bound to a common mission, and that's what's been my journey.
Yes, sir. I'm hearing some central themes, and so I heard a lot about creativity and being at the forefront of innovation and maybe even merging industries. For instance, merging the development of the electrical industry with the development of the oil and gas industry. So that's one, and it's amazing that you were around such amazing forces at such a young and impressionable age, because it clearly left a mark on you. The second thing that left an impact on me is your grandpa's ability to be a servant leader before that phrase even existed. So he was a servant leader before it was cool to be one, and he was that way because he knew it would have a profound impact on the quality of business that he could run. So I thank him for that, because those qualities shine through very well in you. The third thing that I heard that I really appreciated was he was always looking through things of trying to give people a better life. and that's amazing and really unique in my opinion. Dick, he's one of the only people I hear spoke about in that fashion, and unfortunately I haven't known that many people like him, but I think it's incredible that you were around such powerful molding forces that helped you embody those traits today very, very well, so much so that they would be very proud of you for your carrying on of the family tradition. Did I miss anything? What are there any other central themes that are as important to you as the creativity and the servant leadership, and always kind of looking at things through trying to give something to somebody that's better than what they had before?
Well, I think it's I think something that has been symbolic of the way I saw my role and the role of the oil and gas industry, and particularly pipelines, with our mission in human society, and that is creating a relationship in which each part of what we do supports and is supported by another part of society. We don't live in isolation. We don't work in isolation. Our successes are not our own. They are largely the work of others that help position us and provide us the tool and the support, and create the demand for the kind of services that we're capable of providing. It's symbiosis. Yes. It's a complicated word, but it really is. Each part exists because of the other parts. Mm-hmm. And the symbol, perhaps it's more natural as an Oklahoman, that one way we see that is in the buffalo. The buffalo lives in large herds, moving across the plains, and the way it lives its life and the things it does helps sustain the plains. The plains would not be the plains. The tall grass prairies would not be the tall grass prairies. And all the other life that makes its home in the prairies that reached all the way from Texas and Oklahoma all the way into Manitoba and Saskatchewan and Canada, all of that depended upon life forces that depended upon each other and created the environment that one supports the other. And so the buffalo supported the tall grass, and out of gratitude, the tall grass supported the buffalo. Mm-hmm. It's an image of something that is majestic and beautiful, and was an essential part of the development of North American society, from the early arrivals into North America as they came down across the straits and through Canada to populate different parts of this area, and how they began to be in that same symbiotic relationship. They lived their lives like the buffalo. It's like the buffalo was a teacher for them, and how they would interact with each other. And so they were careful and respectful for what they did, so that all could be sustained in balance. I think much of the oil and gas industry and its role over the last century and some period of time of its existence has learned to be that. At this point, perhaps it's best then to transition to another symbol, because some of the things that I learned about my grandfather and about others in the industry from the early days and the challenges they had were all in response to make that industry more effective, more productive, more safe, are the same challenges that the industry, particularly the pipeline industry, has had in the decades that followed. And as we look at the challenges that are facing our industry today, not just the pipeline industry, but the entire hydrocarbon energy industry and its relationship with other forms of energy, some of which we refer to as sustainable. Another technology that cannot be ignored, my apologies, is that the sense of human society to be better for maintaining that sustainability of what humanity does has continued to evolve, and from the 40s to the 1950s, right up to the present date, there's always been this need to better understand and to improve practices to protect people, protect the product, deliver good services, and to do that in a way that also protects the environment. That really is not new in many respects, although maybe the expectations at different times, right up to the present date, overreaches the capability of an industry and of the society to accept the challenge and to carry it forward. And I think this is part of why I think R.B.Williamson Energy Advisors and others like us are critical, can be a critical and salient element in helping the industry see what those challenges are and help them see approaches for addressing the challenges in a different way. The symbol that we've chosen for that is the Mobius. Now, the Mobius is a rather strange looking creature. It looks like a simple band of some material that loops and comes back on itself. But when it makes the journey and comes back again, it's upside down. It's not in the same position. And I've always been curious about why that was. I think I know why it is mathematically. You can write the equation. Well, not I, but others. But to me, it's a symbol that we rest on one place and we begin to see the world and its challenges from a certain position. But if we continue the journey of exploring ways to solve a problem, we can find ourselves, in essence, upside down, or to say it another way, looking at things very differently. And at that time, we can begin to see things and opportunities to address these challenges in a different way. That's, in many ways, that's the core of what we would like to do and provide that as a service to the industry. We've had decades of experience individually and collectively, we'll just say a millennium of experience to see things, see what it takes to manage it, and the challenges of looking at problems differently. Collectively, this is our mission: to work with industry, to see what is currently a challenge and an opportunity for them, and then to look a little bit beyond that to see things that are coming and will have to be addressed, and find ways in concert with our partners in industry to develop those things so that they will be available when the time arrives.
Yes, sir. It has definitely left an impression on me, and I just wanted to personally thank you for being not just a friend, but being a mentor to me as well, and helping pass on some of the qualities that your grandfather held so dear and did so well, passing them to my generation, Dick. We forget sometimes that those lessons don't always need to happen from the generation exiting an industry to the one entering. There's a lot of generations in between, and I'll take any learning opportunity that is presented.
Well, and as a way of responding to that, I would say although my years would say I probably have insights into everything, I'm always surprised, and I would say delighted and gratified when I meet someone like yourself that helps me move that on that path of the Mobius so that I can begin to see the challenges from a different perspective.
Yes, sir.
It's a gift that you have. It's a gift that everybody that is a part of R.B.Williamson Energy Advisors has. And they, as I, are looking forward to an opportunity to meet each of you that are watching this video and learning more about us. So,
thank you. To our audience, this was kind of a unique opportunity for us today, and we had somebody on the podcast with an incredible amount of experience, and so I'm sure that you guys want to know more. So please use this opportunity. Drop comments in the comments box. If whatever you guys want us to talk about, we would love the opportunity to talk about that, because chances are you guys are probably in the energy industry too, and discussing those things is absolutely what we're talking about when we're talking about knowledge transfer or being creative or impacting the next generation or being ready to solve problems when that problem presents itself. This is who we are. So I thank you for being on the show. Thank you for spending the time with us and our team today. And then much more personally, thank you for spending the time with me and helping me develop too. I appreciate you, Dick. Thank you guys so much. Drop comments if you have them, and then we'll see you guys next time.